Welcome to the Conscious Communion podcast, where we traverse through the inner dwellings of the human experience through conversation. I'm your host, Danae. Join me as we explore the interconnection of creativity and community. Today, I have on Sierra LaRue. She is a psychedelic consultant and a creative being who also explores the realm of photography, connection with the outside world, and individuals alike. She is intent on building a beautiful community of intention and awareness around psychedelics specifically, and today's conversation will be a sweet little lens into that space. Welcome to episode 7 of the Conscious Communion podcast with Sierra LaRue.
Hello. It's so wonderful to have you in this space.
Thank
you. An honor and a privilege.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Sierra is an incredible human being, and I'm so honored and privileged to know her. She is a psychedelic consultant, and just having her here has been, again, just an honor because her presence brings such a peace to my spirit whenever I'm with you. So to drop into this space, would you like to take a breath with me?
I would love that.
Awesome. Breathing in however feels good for you. And releasing. Giving it a little wiggle, shaking it out. And may spirit just speak through us in this conversation, and whatever comes through, comes through.
Yeah.
I'm
awesome.
Excited. Me too. So meeting Sierra was kind of a very interesting, fun, kismet, cosmic event, because through leaving the church and through Instagram and social media, I was led to your page and finding a little bit more about you. And moving up here, and after my breathwork experience and really trying to find ground, I got connected with you, fortunately, and you were a coach for me and really helped me and consulted me with my own psychedelic transition. And that had been crazy for me.
Yeah.
After coming from the church and not having an experience for over 10 years.
Yeah.
And you really created safety for me. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah. It was really cool to get to witness
that
process for you and how deeply it impacted you. And wasn't just this kind of recreational or like feel good experience, but seemed to really impact the quality of your life and sort of how you were interacting with your life in a pretty profound way.
Seriously. Very much so. Yeah. I think everything kind of changed from that point on. I know it was in my body. It was in my mind. It was in my spirit. It was a full alignment and transition of grounding with, everything, the earth and everyone that we get to be in contact with and all of it. And it was just so beautiful. And so I just want to thank you for that. And just, I would love for you to share a little bit about how you have transitioned into, you launched Psychedelic Stories to share information with folks. And I think so much of it is storytelling, right?
Yeah.
You get to be a space holder for storytellers.
Yeah. I think that storytelling is a really foundational part of the human psyche. It's what built tribes and clans together, were these stories that we shared within intimate community. And we don't have that so much anymore. And so it feels like in a lot of ways we've lost the road making towards where we're going as a collective, because there's not that sharing and resharing of goals or visions or dreams or ideals. And so my coming into all of the psychedelic work
that I've done with people over the past 3 years came from me sharing my story about my own healing and wellness that came from my own personal experiences with first psilocybin and then other psychedelic substances. And some of the things were rather physical. I was struggling with a lot of body issues, a lot of what would be labeled by anybody probably as like chronic illness. For about 2 years leading up to that first psychedelic experience.
Wow.
And it radically transformed my life. I had just been falling and slipping downhill and not knowing what to do, and like going and seeing the nutritional therapist, going and seeing doctors, doing the elimination diets, trying to figure out what was wrong with me. And it just got worse until all of a sudden I had a 6-hour full immersive psychedelic journey with psilocybin, and it was better all of a sudden. And so all the people in my life who had been watching this process suddenly watched it turn around entirely. And so they're like, what happened? What changed? What did you figure out? And I was just lit up. And so I was telling the story of what had happened. And they were so curious. And so that my process of becoming a consultant and supporting people was never intentional. It wasn't a plan. It was just what naturally arose out of telling my story. And then having additional experiences and telling that story, because it was so profound and so impactful that I couldn't imagine not really sharing with anybody who wouldn't at least be willing to listen to me for a while.
For sure.
They would joke that I would just like drag my soapbox around with me wherever I go. And if somebody would give me 5 minutes, I'd for sure bring up mushrooms in that process.
Yeah. Well, because it fully transformed your life.
Yeah. In a way that nothing else had. I was in a really good spiritual and psychological place.
Yeah.
It wasn't that there was obvious issues. And yet there were still obstacles and there were still barriers that the simple obvious answers to weren't working.
Right.
And those psychedelic experiences in those first ways just blew open the possibility of an entirely new way to find wellness and healing. And so I started in small ways supporting people in whatever they needed to feel comfortable possibly trying this for themselves, because a lot of the people that I was sharing my personal story to in those days were my friends and my clients as a professional photographer who were women probably in the range of 25 to 35, who a lot of them had never tried psychedelics.
Wow.
Wouldn't maybe feel interested otherwise, except for the fact that I was clearly really, really stoked about it. But they didn't want to go find some guy's cousin who knows this guy and meet him in a parking lot of 7-Eleven.
Right.
And like have this sketchy interaction. This isn't the demographic of people that I was sharing these stories with. Yeah. And so it felt really important to me to just help people as much as I possibly could find a way to try this for themselves if they wanted to.
Yeah.
And so that ball just kept rolling, and I found myself doing less and less photography and more supporting people in the psychedelic space. And so it was this really natural transition. And all the while, storytelling was the foundational part of that, because people would send me these really beautiful messages by text or through Instagram, really just laying their heart out for me, sharing how impactful their microdose or their journey experience had been. And that felt like the most compelling thing to me. Is this isn't people being like, whoa, I saw aliens, man. This was people saying, I didn't feel depressed for the first time.
Totally.
In 3 years.
That hits. Yeah, that hits for me for sure.
Yeah. And so I started to reshare anonymously just the DMs that I was getting. And I think that was really encouraging for other people, because there's this hope now that, well, I feel really anxious. I feel really insecure. I feel all of these things that I'm reading other people are also experiencing. And now we're creating that interconnection and that communal bonding and saying, well, I feel that way too. And maybe if you can feel better, then I can feel better too.
Totally.
Now there's hope.
Yeah. It's such a beautiful indication that something that has been around for billions of years, long before us, right? Like, could potentially be an answer to prayers for so many people. Yeah. And it's apart from Western medicine.
Yeah.
But it's been around longer than Western medicine.
Yeah.
So what would you say to someone who is curious and still kind of on the fence, maybe afraid about taking that next step and potentially trying psilocybin or taking themselves through a process of at least inquiring a little bit more about it?
Yeah. I think that one of the most important aspects of it to me is that whoever it is that's wanting to experience this for the first time, feels like they have all of the information and answers they need to make an informed choice. I don't advocate for just like giving it a shot and eating whatever and seeing what happens. So find somebody such as myself or a trusted friend or an online resource where you can have those conversations and answer all of those questions so that when the time comes and you decide to put whatever that substance is into your body, you're doing it in absolute confidence that you're making a good choice for yourself.
That's so good. That's such a good, I think it's so important to have the autonomy to ensure that you are making the best decision for you. And I've said that multiple times on this podcast because so much of that is even like our thought process, right? Like we're so quick to judge people. And I think from an outsider looking in, like potentially people could be hearing us talk about this and be just judgmental because they've never taken themselves through that journey. And maybe they don't have that context to know what it's like to be depressed fully and have yourself healed. And it's not like it was the end all be all, right? Like it's not the Band-Aid that fixed everything, but it takes you through at least the process to kind of take yourself there and inquire a little bit more within yourself.
Yeah. It's an opportunity out.
It's an opportunity out. That's such a, there's no, what's the saying? There's no other way out but through. Like you have to go through it. And psychedelics really take you through that. So can you share a little bit about possibly like an experience for you that really shocked your system in a way that kind of took you through this process to really unveil more about you and the depths of your soul?
Ooh, there's so many. Well, I spoke to that first experience. It was technically my second experience with psilocybin that healed my stomach issues. And that experience was what changed the trajectory of my life and has arrived me here. And that's a really incredible story. But I almost feel inclined to share the most recent psychedelic experience because it was so extraordinarily different than anything else. And so when you said a shock to the system, that felt like exactly what that experience was for me. This most recent journey for me was mid-November. No, it was the end of October. Right at Halloween. And my birthday was coming up. And so I really wanted to just be with who I was, who I am, and who I'm becoming going into a new year of myself. And every psychedelic experience I've ever had, that's not true. Every psilocybin experience I've ever had has been extraordinarily emotional, where I'm processing the things, the stories, the traumas, the pain, the relationships, the who I am. And I see it and I feel it. And it's usually, I actually don't get like crazy visions the way most people do, or a lot of people do. Some people will see these whole other universes, entire visions, and I don't see anything. It's just kind of blackness on there. Do you see?
It's been different. One time on a hero journey, I saw
you see things,
but then the other times it's been more inward.
Okay. Yeah.
More an introspective.
Yeah.
Look.
It's always this like feeling sense.
Yes.
Within myself. And so there's no like vision that I need to see. It's all here.
Yeah.
And all of my journeys up until this point have been that way. And except for my last one.
Oh, wow.
And it was so out of left field that it's really kind of incredible experience, because instead of laying down and turning inward, I realized rather quickly that I was slipping out of myself in a way of losing all of my memories and all of my sense of being, my stories, who I was, my place in the world. And so by the time that I was fully in that space, fully tripping, I didn't know who I was or what I was or what I was doing.
Wow.
I had no idea. But the reason that was profoundly medicinal for my heart and my spirit is because a couple of months prior, I had been introduced to a practice called TRE, which is trauma release exercises, which induce tremoring to shift stored trauma out of the body.
Yeah.
And
it's a book, right?
I don't know. I went to a practitioner here in Portland, and it was incredible experience. But after that, it was very clearly something that my body wanted to do. And so, there's a lot in there, a lot that was stored in there. And so as my mind was slipping away, the tremors came in.
Wow.
And so I spent the duration of this last journey having no idea what was going on and shaking for 7 hours.
Wow.
And I was extraordinarily grateful to my husband who was there, who gave me affirmations for about 7 hours straight, where I would ask, am I okay?
Yeah.
Say, yeah, you're okay. I was like, okay, is this going to last forever? And he's like, no, it's not going to last forever. And I was like, did I do this on purpose? He's like, yeah, you did this on purpose.
Yeah.
I would go through this cycle. And then about 5 minutes later, I wouldn't remember any of it. And I would say, is this going to last forever? But all the while, my body was processing this extraordinarily physical and somatic experience. And so it shifted from my perception, having done this and viewed this in a lot of different people, from the possibility and the potential being an emotional release that leads us to wellness.
Right.
Because it can do that.
Right.
But also, it can take your mind away and allow your body to process. Somatically.
Which is so vital. And wow, it's important to note that, like, if we don't process the trauma in our body, it's going to need to come out in some way, right? Like, I experienced that with my back injury last year, and I think it was like this old stored trauma in my body that had kind of gotten taken up, if you will, in my process of breath work. And then with the medicine that I was taking, with like psilocybin specifically, and your facilitation of like taking me through my own process and being a coach and a guide for me, like that was able to ground me back in, but then the injury kind of took me back into the body and I needed that support again because it was like, okay, how can I integrate microdosing into this experience for the body?
Yeah.
You know, because the mind, body, and spirit, they all work so differently.
Yeah.
So it's a full like alignment process that also needs to take place after. So what was your integration process like after that?
Well, it was really interesting because my husband was convinced I wasn't going to remember anything because I didn't remember anything
After a couple minutes
during the process, but I actually could remember all of it. So from a mental standpoint, it didn't actually feel nearly as laborious as sometimes journeys can, where you're so just sort of overwhelmed and disoriented from the magnitude. I call it a high density experience. So those emotional journeys normally have so much packed into them that we need a lot of time to tease out what that meant for us. But because I had no thoughts the entire time, that wasn't a portion of it. But there was very specific changes that happened in my body, starting from the day after. My body was popping to an incredible degree where I couldn't roll over in bed or stand up without just a whole reshifting of what it felt like of my skeleton. You know, I'd reach for something and my shoulder would pop and everything was popping. It was so bizarre. That lasted probably 4 days before it started to settle back in.
Crazy.
Mm-hmm. And I've talked to a couple of people about that who work in somatics who sort of nod that to like taking a new form, you know, a new shape into the world. And like releasing all of those like stuck pockets of things between your joints and creating a new body in some ways. And then I think that it's really incredible the difference in my like nervous system activation, how grounded I feel, how safe I feel, how present I feel. There was this kind of ongoing current of fight or flight that was existing in me. And it wasn't highly activated, but it was active at all points. And so that made me very fidgety and restless in a lot of ways. And that just feels like it's relaxed and released. That tight clenching can just rest.
That's so good. Yeah. Like breath was like just doused into your body, into your skeletal system. Like, that's amazing.
But I think the most incredible side effect, which is what I would maybe consider like this new integration from that experience, is that for as long as I can remember, really, I've been extraordinarily cold and had Raynon Syndrome in my hands, which by like definition is an autoimmune disease where even in the grocery store, if I would walk down the freezer aisle or something like that, my whole fingers, one or all of them or just the tip, would go completely white. And there was complete loss of circulation in that. And because my core body temperature was so low and my circulation was so poor, I was just cold all the time. And winter would cause a lot of anxiety because then I knew I was going to be more cold. And immediately after that experience, it was clear that my body temperature was much higher than it ever had been.
Your circulation changed.
My circulation changed. And I believe that the cause of that is because being cold and constricted in your circulation is a symptom of depression. And so not maybe an emotional depression, but my body was physically in a depression. And so circulating and moving all of that and creating more spaciousness from the tremoring and from the release allowed my circulation to go up and the weight of that depression to be relieved. And so it's been really crazy because the Raynaud's has not showed up once all winter yet. And I'm like kind of sweaty sometimes.
And it's been a cold winter so far.
Yeah.
And we're not technically in winter, which is bizarre.
Yeah.
But like,
yeah. I'm kind of like sweaty now that I don't know what to do with that. I'm like, why am I so hot? I like kick the blankets off of me at night.
Wow.
And like that feels to me like very concrete evidence that something shifted, just like that second experience where my stomach ailment shifted. This wasn't some sort of mystical musings. This is very clearly changing the quality of my life. If I'm not cold all the time, that impacts how I interact with the world.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Well, and I mean, the fact that, and it's so hard with body trauma too, because we can communicate with those things, but it's really hard to dive in and to inquire and ask the body, what is this? What is this associated with? And because everything that you've experienced up to this point, being a little girl, and who knows all the, just every little thing. And we remember so much of our trauma, but there's also things that we don't remember, but our body never forgets. Mm-hmm. So the fact that your body took yourself through this somatic release through that medicinal experience is so beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. What was Andrew's reaction? Andrew's your husband, just for context. So what was his reaction to watching you go through that? Like after when you spoke and you were integrating and kind of just figuring out like, whoa, what was that about? Like, what was that conversation like for the two of you?
Yeah, it's actually really cool. If anybody wants to watch it, we recorded the next morning of us sitting on the couch on my YouTube channel. So you can actually watch our whole sort of unpacking
process. I didn't watch that
of that.
I want to watch that. Yes.
He took it really, really in stride. He's worked in a lot of emergency response sort of jobs and situations. And so it didn't really faze him, which I'm glad for. Because in that space, when I was needing the affirmations, one of them was, I was like, are you worried about me? And he was like, no, I'm not worried about you. And so his just cool, calm presence in all of it made me extraordinarily just trusting of what was happening. I'm like, okay, you're not worried about it. I'm not going to be worried about it.
Yeah.
But I think it's been really incredible. It was just really incredible for him to witness, especially knowing the cold symptoms and the Raynaud's and everything, getting to be there for that process and then seeing the tangible shift that made.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Truly. It's so funny because you don't really hear too many experiences that take you through the somatics.
Yeah.
Like you do, but generally there's some outsourcing of some other type of practice or facilitation that's taking place when that happens.
Yeah.
So it's just, that is like, it's so beyond my sense of knowing what's possible with psychedelics. And it really is such a great teacher, right?
Yeah.
Like, and it's unique in the way that it teaches you and allows you to enter into this new experience without, it's like, where is spirit going to lead me today? Right. And it's like, what is this journey going to teach me today?
Yeah.
It's always an opportunity though.
Yeah. Then that's the trick with psychedelics is people talk about these bad trips and all of these things. That experience very, very well could have been or gone the direction of being a bad trip. But the key to it is the open-handedness to it. It wasn't what I expected at all. It wasn't what I anticipated, but it was what I needed. And so trusting that in both the psychedelic experience, but then also into life as well.
Yeah. With everything, right? It's like, it teaches you so much about life in the way that it's like, not everything, I don't believe anything. And we briefly talked about it earlier, right? It's like, whatever's happening to us is happening for us.
Yeah.
And it's just, that's so great. And I love your love for the earth. And I wanted to touch on that because I believe that it all connects. I think that your respect for the land and the people that have come before us and the circles and all of it, right? Like, I think that you do a really good job at honoring the practices that have come before to then inform people that you have the opportunity to work with in such a beautiful way, because there is an honoring that takes place. And I think that translates into other people's experiences, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because you are holding that space. Yeah. Yeah. And so what has been your process of like studying and just allowing yourself to receive all of that and to, to be one with the earth, because you really are,
Yeah. I mean, a psychedelic experience will teach you really quick that you are very much a part of everything and nature in what sounds like the most cliche hippie thing that I could possibly ever say, but it's true and is an incredible outcome of those experiences. I think that it's really important it's been really important for me to remember that nature isn't an other, that the plants and the trees and the forest, which can be so medicinal for our spirits. And sometimes I've just craved, and wanted to be out in the wilderness, and then having to be really intentional with reminding myself that I too am nature.
Yeah.
That we're not separate. And my journey has been so much of one of like coming closer into truth and closer into remembering, which is that all of those beautiful things out there, that mountain that I think is so incredibly beautiful, is also just a reflection of me and of you and of everyone else. And then the mushrooms specifically themselves providing such an incredible opportunity and intelligence that I don't understand, but it is. And it's really apparent. It's really obvious that it's there.
Yes.
And so I've just been pretty enraptured with how magical and fantastic mushrooms are and what they provide and what they can do and how they can impact us. But also understanding that that's probably very true for all of nature.
That's a good word. Yeah.
Yeah. The psychological impact of trees and plants and humans and all of those things feel like one of the most precious things that we can devote ourselves to.
Yeah. And you do it in such I think I love just seeing you and, you rock climb and you really have integrated yourself. Hello. You really have integrated yourself with the earth. And I mean, even Andrew hunting and you going hunting with him. I don't know if you feel comfortable going here, but I hope you do, because when I got to come to your house, there was just, for me as an Indigenous woman who feels very much, I want to use the word separate, because I have been taken out of my culture in such a profound way. And now I'm trying to reintroduce myself back into a culture that was lost because of my parents' assimilation to culture in the United States. You know what I mean? Yeah. And knowing that you take your food seriously, knowing that you you honor your food with intention and respect is so beautiful to me.
Yeah.
And I think I had come over like the last time right after you all had gone on a trip, and I just, to hear you talk about it, and it was so special to me because there is such an honoring. You have a bow. It's not like it's like this. I think there's so much that is taken out of context with people want to just, hate on what they want to hate on. But there's such a respect and an honoring that takes place with everything that you do. And it is because you really, like, you are encompassed by the earth, and you are her like teacher. You were her teacher and you were her student. You were both. And it's like this wonderful presence that you can see within you and through your actions and the way that you just live your life.
Yeah.
So like, what is that like? Because you introduce it to your family too, which I think is very important.
Yeah. A lot of it's been really important to me to continue to make better choices. We shouldn't be faulted for the education and the upbringings that we were given, but I have really personally instilled this conviction of do better, keep learning, keep growing, and that's never a place that has a destination. That's just in this moment. But I think that as somebody who I feel extraordinarily feeling towards everything, I can feel and sense really clearly what feels right and what feels wrong, and something that needs loving attention. And so my life for several years has been sort of different phases of getting focused on something. May it be food or relationships or nature or whatever it is, where I really kind of deep dive into what my relationship with that looks like and what the implications of that are. How does that get carried out into the world? And I think most recently, in you speaking to your own lineage and your own family, is that so many of us feel disconnected from the undercurrent of who we are and where we came from, because so many of our families came here and abandoned their traditions, abandoned their histories to create this new life in a new world, right? And so we feel that orphaning within ourselves of not knowing our families, not knowing our culture, because we carry it on our faces, right? But we don't know it in our minds, and we've not felt it, that connection in our bodies. And so a big part for me recently, having gone through these really intimate looks at our food, Andrew's hunting, relationships, all of these things that have really gotten my undivided attention for a while in my life, has been most recently looking at the fact that we are Indigenous.
All of us.
Some of us have really far removed histories, and some of us are closer to our history. But beyond modernization, beyond industrialization, beyond all of those things, we were people rooted to the earth. And so remembering that has been really foundational in my sense of belonging, my sense of interconnection to my ancestry, and also feeling incredible honoring to other people's ancestry, because it's this rich, nourishing, so beautiful thing. And if we can all spend a little bit more time like touching into that, then it shows us how to live in right relationship with our food and with the animals and with the earth and all of those things.
So good. Yeah. That's such a beautiful answer. That is, and you really live that life with integrity.
Mm.
And I just want to say that to you, because
Thank you.
I think it's, for us to be mirrors for each other is an honor, really, and a privilege. I'm grateful that Instagram somehow like connected these two souls, that like I see so much of my own experience through your eyes and the way that you navigate the world, and you're a good lens for me into also just seeing more into the human experience, you know?
Yeah.
So, and especially with the work you do, I think that I just really want to say well done.
Thank you.
Yeah. Because I think we need it. I think our earth needs it.
Yeah.
And you do it with such grace.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so grateful for the beautiful connections that come out of Instagram and the internet. It's really easy to like feel begrudgingly about it.
Totally.
But I'm so extraordinarily grateful for having to meet you through that, and so many other beautiful people that come through this new sort of way of interrelating and connecting with people.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's funny to note just that I found you through like a friend from church.
Oh,
and
so funny.
I mean, I think it's hilarious.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that someone posted about you and their work with you and you consulting them, and I was like, oh, interesting. And this was after I had gone through my breathwork experience, and this was as I'm purging my own spiritual ideas of what the church is, and you coming from the church. I think it's fascinating because we get to create this new idea of what the church is.
Yeah.
Right. Like what is the church? Like how can we move forward in this way of being the church, but apart from the dogmatic ideas that we knew and know too well.
A reimagining. That's actually exactly what I've been up to recently. And it's hilarious because, you know, being raised in the church, I have had some religious trauma there, and for a long time not even wanted to think or like be with that pain. And as the universe would have it, that is where I have arrived to in the process of Oregon becoming the first state to offer facilitated psilocybin services, as that's began to roll out over the course of the last 2 years. It's in a really, really incredible step in the right direction where people should have access to these things that can transform our lives. And that's absolutely the future that I want to see, where informed adults can choose to interact with their minds and their hearts and their spirits. You know, that feels like a fundamental right to me. But the way that certain aspects of the legislation are being offered have not felt in alignment for me. And I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out what I was going to do with that and how I was going to proceed when this offering to the world and how I want to see it impact people's lives doesn't feel like it's represented in the legal framework that's being offered. And so the result has been that I am just a couple of days away from really founding and having everything put in place, my own church.
Sarah!
And so what that means is that the members of this church who feel called to interact with spirit in the way that feels right for them can have the opportunity in individual or group settings to experience the spiritual realms that come through psilocybin.
That like touches me.
Good. Yeah. Yeah.
It's really beautiful.
I want all people who feel ready and feel called to this medicine to be able to make that choice.
Absolutely.
And my hope is that if anyone that feels ready and they know it's their time, that they can come.
All are welcome.
Yeah.
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 That's so beautiful. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. That is, it doesn't surprise me at all. And I know that you've done your due diligence to do your homework and to again, find the alignment within yourself to know that, you know, the other path wasn't for you.
Yeah.
And you had to make the decision for yourself to know what was for you.
Yeah.
And I know Spirit led you there.
For sure.
I know that to be true.
Yeah. There was, felt like only one choice, really.
Yeah.
You know? Just something, if something is not right, you can feel it. I can feel it. And so this feels right.
Yeah.
Feels like the offering I want to put out in the world.
I feel it for you. I definitely feel that in my gut and in my heart for you.
You're going to become a member of the church?
Yeah. Will you share with folks how people can find you and just where they can, reach out and inquire and all the things?
Absolutely. Instagram's a great place to start. I have 2 different pages. I have my personal page, which is Sierra_LaRue. Maybe we can just type this out for people.
I sure will.
And then I have my other and my coaching end of the page. And then there's Psychedelic Stories, which is on YouTube. If you want to follow the Instagram rabbit hole, it's in my bio. You can find it there. I also have a website. And I think that all of those are really great places to look and to start, maybe get a feel for who I am if you don't already, and see if it resonates for you, for anybody that is curious. But then I just want to encourage people to reach out too.
Yeah.
If they have questions, if they want to talk, we can hop on a phone call, whatever it is. This isn't my business and my life isn't ran as this, this is what I offer and this is the price point package. This is a very dynamic offering. And so if anybody has questions or just wants to talk about it, I would love to do that.
I love that. Thank you for being so open and willing and vulnerable. And thank you for being a safe space for so many people and for continuing to listen to Spirit and just be led.
Yeah. Thank you for inviting me into this conversation.
Yeah, of course. It's been an honor and a privilege. Always, always, always. Thank you so much, and all the love and peace and blessings to you wherever you're at. Peace.
Hey there, it's Danae again. Just wanted to say thank you for sharing your time and energy with me. If this podcast resonates, please like, subscribe, follow, and share if you're willing. Reviews help too, so if you're feeling the vibe, please leave a review where you can. Sending all the love. Peace.